extras, laughter, cheers, and applause.
An unforgettable night.
See clowns, acrobats, the world's finest circus artists at the Big Apple Circus.
Returns to Dulles Town Center September 20th through October 8th. Call Ticketmaster today.
Now, a flashback to the past that could also be a glimpse into the future as the search for the terrorists continues. The year 1993, the World Trade Center has just been bombed, and authorities are desperate for clues. Doug Bruckner shows us step by step how they brought those criminals to justice.
Walls just blew in, walls collapsed, furniture's down. It's a mess downstairs.
The massive explosion at the World Trade Center in 1993 blasted a crater 100 feet wide and 6 stories deep in the basement of one of the enormous towers.
The damage totaled over $1 billion. 6 persons died, over 1,000 were injured, and many of those injuries were very severe.
Within minutes, hundreds of FBI agents, police, and emergency personnel were on the scene. For investigators, the first step was to determine exactly where the bomb was planted.
There was one particular piece of evidence, a large support beam to the building, which had been sheared off.
This indicated the bomb had been placed on the B2 level of the parking garage, next to the critical support beam. Although the explosion ripped through 6 levels of the building, it did not take it down, which is what the terrorists had planned. But who were the perpetrators of this heinous act?
We did not know who was to blame. There had been a number of claims of responsibility sent to news organizations and police organizations.
One letter sent to the New York Times claimed the bombing was intended to punish the United States for its support of Israel. It was from a group calling itself the Liberation Army 5th Battalion. Meanwhile, well over 500 teams of investigators were sifting through 2,500 tons of rubble looking for clues. 48 hours into their search, they made a dramatic discovery.
A frame that was highly damaged, a piece of metal, was recovered in a particular location in the garage.
Agents realized they'd found a part of the actual vehicle that held the bomb. The telltale twisting and tearing of the metal indicated it had been within inches of the explosive device. And after wiping it clean, agents found a number, a vehicle identification number.
We knew that a particular VIN number went back to a particular vehicle.
There's only one vehicle ever manufactured by any automotive maker in the world that has that number.
And that tiny piece of metal would be the link to the terrorists responsible for the tragedy.
And when we come back, that number leads investigators to the men behind the unthinkable.
Truly remarkable footage inside the undercover investigation when Extra America Under Siege returns in just a moment.
Everyone's looking for that miracle cream. For me, it's my hair color. New Excellence Cream from L'Oreal. My non-drip cream just got better. Now it protects my hair non-stop, during coloring and afterward, with lots of extra conditioner. So whenever I color, my hair just looks richer, healthier. New Excellence, beautiful color, and no grays. I told you. It's the miracle cream. New Excellence from L'Oreal Paris. The color cream that protects non-stop, because you're worth it.
When I used to take antacids, I always thought of that kid in school who ate weird things, like chalk. All those other antacids taste so chalky. Well, things have changed. Now there's Surpass Antacid Chewing Gum from Wrigley Healthcare. It tastes great and keeps working long after you stop chewing. My heartburn's gone, and Surpass still tastes great. Oh, honey, don't eat that. New Surpass Antacid. Great big relief. Great little gum.
Relax. Just listen to my voice.
On September 28th,
look in my eyes.
On this quiet street, a stranger will arrive and pass his power to another. From the author of The Green Mile,
Find the Queen of Hearts,
and the director of Shine,
tell me what you see.
swim here.
Anthony Hopkins, Hearts in Atlantis, rated PG-13. Starts September 28th at a theater near you.
So listen, could I call you sometime?
Yeah, I'd like that.
Great.
Here, my home number's on the back.
Excellent.
Hey, could I get that number? Yeah, me too.
$5 each?
Sure.
If life were like some internet providers, your personal information would go to anyone willing to pay for it. Switch to the #1 provider of the real internet. Call 1-800-EARTHLINK.
And welcome back to Extra. We continue our look at how federal agents solved the first terrorist attack on the World Trade Center.
A vehicle identification number on a piece of twisted metal gives them a vital clue, a clue which will lead them to the bombers. Once again, Doug Bruckner.
By tracing a vehicle identification number found in the rubble, the FBI learned the truck carrying the bomb came from a Ryder rental company in Jersey City, just across the Hudson River from the bomb tower.
The person who rented it, this Mohammed Salame, was going to come back the next day, that he had claimed that the van had been stolen, and he was coming back to get his $400 back.
The FBI moved quickly to catch Salame. They planted a federal agent inside the Ryder office, and when Salame arrived,
the plan was for me to engage him in conversation. Also, pictures were being taken of him without him being aware of it. To be quite honest, my heart was pounding at that point.
How do you say your last name?
My last name is Salame.
All right, your address?
Yeah, I lived in 34 Kensington Avenue.
Salame continued talking, remarkably arguing over his deposit money.
We're willing to go as high as $200 to settle the claim.
I need justice, some justice. I paid $400.
Justice arrived minutes later when Salame left the Ryder office and was arrested by FBI agents. Other agents descended on 34 Kensington Avenue, where they found bomb-making components and clothes spattered with chemicals. Clues there led the FBI to another apartment where the walls had a strange blue tint.
Mixing took place in that particular apartment, and there was an explosive preparation in that apartment.
Other papers pointed to this Jersey City self-storage facility. The law enforcement agents that searched it recovered large stashes of chemicals, enough to build another bomb. 6 days later, agents made a second arrest. A business card found on Salame gave them the name of Nadal Iyad, a chemical engineer. Phone records showed calls from the storage facility to Iyad's office, and a computer in that office yielded a draft of the very same letter sent to the New York Times claiming responsibility.
The bombing was the collection of an ad hoc collaboration of 5 different militant Islamic groups. Their purpose? To punish the United States for its mere existence.
In New York City, agents began a surveillance of additional suspects, and as this hidden camera shows, captured them literally mixing another bomb.
I would call it Terrorism 101.
In 1994, Mohammed Salame and his cohorts were tried, convicted, and each sentenced to 240 years in prison. And a year later, the mastermind behind the bombing, Ramzi Youssef, was captured in Pakistan and brought to the U.S. He, too, will spend the rest of his life behind bars.
I think that the response that came back from law enforcement was loud, clear, and very unambiguous, that we will literally go to the ends of the earth to find and prosecute those people who perpetrate crimes like this.
And we hope that happens this time as well. Now, we're joined by someone who's done his time on Capitol Hill and in Hollywood. He's a former West Wing producer and current political analyst, Larry O'Donnell. And I asked him earlier for his perspective on the week's events. All right, Lawrence, thank you for joining us. Now, since the hijackings, have you contacted the White House? And if so, what are they saying?
They're not saying anything more than what has been publicly revealed. That's the way it works in a situation like this. There is no inside information that becomes available to the press much before it becomes available publicly.
What do you think about statements that we will retaliate against those that harbor terrorists as well as against the terrorists themselves?
When they see thousands and thousands of New Yorkers being killed in a second in a terrorist attack like that, the notion that perhaps there will be some civilians killed in what the United States does in a retaliatory way is going to be more acceptable worldwide.
So in your opinion, we are going to war?
There could be what any reasonable description would call war by the time this is over, but it will likely be something less. It will likely be something that is of short duration, that is in effect a series of strikes.
What does a declaration of war do? What powers does it afford the president?
It affords the president very clear authority, because we've had this argument nationally ever since Vietnam about exactly what is the presidential war-making authority without a declaration of war. A declaration of war could be a mistake tactically, because a declaration of war then requires, it seems, a kind of prosecution to a finality that might not be possible here. If you have a declaration of war, when do you declare that the war is over? Without a declaration of war and you have military action, you decide when it's over on your own terms.
How do you think the government and President Bush will prepare the American public emotionally for war? And can they?
I don't think the American public needs emotional preparation for what is to come next. They had that in the first hour of the first day of this, and watching those buildings come down. And with the 24-hour news channels continuing rerunning the tapes endlessly of the planes going into the buildings, of the buildings coming down, of the debris, the emotional preparation for war is there.
Who has President Bush's ear? Who is he relying on now?
Well, he's certainly relying on Dick Cheney, Condoleezza Rice, Colin Powell, and without doubt his father. There's no reason for him not to call the president, who had a very, very successful warlike response in Desert Storm, and who has been through this kind of crisis, who also was the head of the CIA. That's a former president that any current president should be calling now. But he does have a highly experienced foreign policy, defense policy team. It's a very, very strong team for reacting to this kind of event.
How would you grade them in a report card? What grade would you give Giuliani?
There is no mayor in America who was more prepared, if you can use that word, to go out there and deal with a situation like this than Rudy Giuliani. You see him out there, and you know he's been through a stress that is beyond description, and he continues to handle it flawlessly. He continues to give out as much information as he possibly can. Governor Pataki is in there doing everything you expect him to do, but Giuliani is a larger figure in New York politics, and he is a more commanding figure in front of the press in these kinds of situations.
Is there ever times where the government will say to the media, could you please not show body bags? Can you please handle this in this manner?
There have been those times in the past, but we are long past that period. It will be impossible for the media to reach any kind of agreement with any aspects of the government on terms of what they will reveal at any given time.
How responsibly has the media handled the story so far?
Oh, I think very responsibly, and there's been, for example, a tremendous amount of care in that first 24 hours. They've played it very, very carefully, and the 24-hour news channels, MSNBC, CNN, and the others have become, in a way, sort of the national forum for these kinds of events.
All right, Lawrence O'Donnell, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And up next, global reaction to Tuesday's tragedy.
Coming up, our national disaster brings an international outpouring of emotion. Plus, inside the minds of those who covered the tragedy on the scene.
We're trying to do what we need to do, which is try to get some facts and try to get some pictures. But at the same time, I'm worried about my daughter at home.
When this special edition, America Under Siege, continues.
In this ordinary home, Mom and Dad have a secret. Your parents are spies. Now, it's up to their kids to save them.
Remind me to raise that allowance.